Hello, everyone, and welcome to this amazing event. I would like to first and foremost thank the organizers of this event. As we have learned over the past 18-20 months, however long it's been now, organizing virtual events can be incredibly time consuming and very difficult. And, in this event, having organizers that were able to assemble and organize so many people over so many days, I can totally appreciate how that could be so time consuming, and a lot of energy and time has been put into putting this event together. So thank you very much. I would like to in particular thank Hazrat Arjamant for being such a helpful and cooperative organizer. I'm sure most of us have had some communication with him over the past 3 weeks, and he has just been a super support system and has been the one that is responsible for most of this. So I would like to thank him very much. So I am here to introduce technical session 6, and that is biodiversity preservation, wildlife management, ecotourism, and the Parks and Peoples interface. And I would like to say a few words concerning those areas. And I would like to start with biodiversity conservation. Biodiversity conservation is critical for all of us. Biodiversity conservation is not just about preserving animals, preserving plants, and preserving ecosystems. It's also about preserving traditional medicine. It's about preserving genetic material that our modern medicine is based on. It's about food systems. It's about aesthetics and about mental health. It is about shelter and providing, human and other animal shelter and habitat. So biodiversity is not simply just preserving species. It is preserving so much more, and also it is critical to the well-being of not just humans but also the planet as a whole and so many species. Biodiversity conservation can be put into so many categories, and it has a relationship with so many different things, and therefore it is a very difficult topic to kind of put in a box, to kind of sort of say, well, biodiversity is just this or it's just that, because it is related to so many things. It is related to biosafety, it is related to health, it is related to biohealth, it is related to what is going on these days with the COVID-19. It is related to so many things, and therefore biodiversity needs to be looked through a multifaceted lens, and also through so many different types of areas, whether it's law, whether it's science, applied science, whether it's social science, and so on and so forth, whether it's the cultural importance, and I can go on and on. Biodiversity conservation is basically absolutely critical for so many things that we cannot really just put it in a box and pretend that we can isolate it from all these other things that it is clearly directly connected to. Wildlife management, once again, wildlife management is a little bit of a misnomer. It sort of talks to or speaks to the idea that wildlife should be managed or needs to be managed, and that we need to sort of rethink and sort of look at through various lenses, because wildlife has an opportunity or creates opportunities in and of itself as to how it will manage in and of itself. And I think when we talk about wildlife management, we need to understand that we are not necessarily the sort of gatekeepers about how wildlife needs to move forward, but we are part of wildlife. And so, in a way, I know this sounds a little crazy for some of you. You might think that I've completely lost my mind, but I really don't think so, or at least I'd like to think that I haven't. But we are part of nature. We are part of the animal kingdom, and therefore we need to understand our role in the ecosystem as it relates to our position, or how we fit into the rest of the wildlife kingdom, and how that it affects wildlife management in and of itself. So therefore, instead of sort of thinking that we know how many of each species we ought to have and what is the opportune or optimal level, I think we need to sort of step back and consider our role in wildlife management, that perhaps should not be nearly as evasive, and so we tend to think that we are the end all and be all of wildlife management, and I am not sure that that is the way forward. In terms of ecotourism has grown immensely in the past few years, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. And in a way, it relates to wildlife conservation in the sense that so much of ecotourism is based on the idea that people want to see wildlife, people want to see intact ecosystems, and so on and so forth. And if that brings in economic development for the people that are living near such places, well, all the better. So tourism is actually a very important way of creating sustainable development for so many communities. But at the same time, we cannot sort of create a zoo out of wildlife. So we need to be careful that we are not, in a way, creating a zoo-like environment when it comes to wild animals, because there is so much stress that is related to that we know about animals that are in zoo-type settings, that we do not want to reproduce that in the wilderness, because we would like to assume that that type of stress is not present there, and wild animals should not be put under so much stress. In terms of parks and people interface, this is an incredibly important issue, and something that in the past 5-10 years has been discussed greatly. I just basically went through, just today, I went through the Grand Canyon, and just watching what a difference it makes, the way that that particular park is being preserved and the animal life that is there, clearly indicates that these types of parks are necessary. However, there's again a lot of issues with these parks. There's the issue that a park is not wilderness. A managed area where people are controlling every movement of the wildlife is not wilderness. There is the issue about how wilderness corridors happen between these parks. So if these parks are basically put in different areas far away from each other, and there's no corridors between them, then you have these isolated pockets of wildlife, of plant life that is not able to communicate, and does not have the mobility to go into other areas. And when we think about parks, I think we need to think about how are these parks connected, and what is the mobility that is available for these various animal populations in order for them to have the habitat they actually need. The other issue here, and this is an issue that I think touches on all the other things that I've said, and I would really, really, really like to reinforce this, and that is the role of Indigenous people. When we take Indigenous people out of their homelands in order to create parks, This is not a good thing. This is actually a very, very bad thing. And in fact, the indigenous influence on wildlife management, on ecotourism, on biodiversity preservation is absolutely critical. There is absolutely nothing today that is more critical than assuring that indigenous people and local communities have a say, have a place at the table, and are able to actually that actually have some power, that are empowered to actually make a difference in how all these things work, whether it's biodiversity conservation, wilderness conservation, and so on and so forth. So please, one of the things that we really need to look at is the rights of Indigenous people and local communities, and making sure that those rights are preserved, that they are strengthened, because there is really no better stewards of the planet than Indigenous and local communities. Thank you very much, and I wish you a beautiful day and a wonderful conference today, and I hope to see you. I think it's on the 26th, and we will see each other then. Thank you very much, and have a great day.